Congrats on starting your own business. Congratulations on getting connected with people that can help give you a roadmap to really ultimately helping you achieve the goals and dreams that you have. And what I really want to do is say, welcome to the success journey. Welcome to the success journey. I think oftentimes we get started in business and we don't really know how to evaluate the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish. So welcome to the success journey. And what I want to talk to you guys about for the next handful of minutes is what that looks like. One of the things I had to ask myself, and it was a tough question to ask, is, Drew, what have you ever been all in with, gone all out with in anything in your life? And when you start to look at that, I don't think I'm alone in this. I think the vast majority of us coming in this environment, if we're really, really brutally honest, we've never gone all in or all out with anything. Many of us, not even for a year or two. And so it's not to ask that question to beat ourselves up, but for me, I asked that question because I said, you know what, I'm gonna make sure that this is different. This is gonna be different. Just like when I stepped into marriage, it wasn't something that I was going to try. It's a commitment, ups and downs. Just like in marriage, ups and downs are gonna happen on this business journey. You know, when your fingernails are growing long, you don't cut off your fingers, you cut your nails. And when challenges hit, my recommendation would be not to quit your business or to walk away from people who are willing to fight through life with you and help you become victorious and win for your family. It would be to cut out the excuses. It would be to cut off the whining and the complaining and start to recognize that you're part of an amazing team. I want you to know that when you're new, you don't have to be weird to do this. I mean, I know a lot of us are weird, but you don't have to be weird to do this. In fact, we have an acronym on our team. It's DBW. You can add that to your list of acronyms that's in the 1 millions when you start a business. Another acronym, since we're talking about them, is STP, which is supposed to be start the process or show the plan, but when you're new, it's not supposed to mean scare the people. You don't have to be weird. You know, sometimes people get started in business and they think, well, man, you know, I don't want to just jump into this thing and have to go talk to all my friends and family. And you know what? If you're scared to do it, I don't want you to do it. And here's why. Because we have to reshape your perspective. Until you see this as a gift, you'll feel like you're selling and recruiting. Once you see this as a gift, once you have allowed the team to add value and to make an impact, you'll no longer be afraid to share your story and make people aware of what you're a part of with anyone. You'll be eager to talk about it, not for the purpose of convincing them, but just because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth will speak. And you'll get to a place like these people are at these front tables, these leaders, that you're so proud and so thankful and so appreciative and so impacted that you feel like everyone at least deserves to know about it. What they do with it is their prerogative, but at least they deserve to know about it because you literally get to a place where you go, you know what? I don't want to have a situation where 15 years down the road, a friend that I've had for many years, his life is in total, utter chaos, and I know had I mentioned this to them, maybe it could have altered the path and the outcome. You don't have to be weird. Talking to people doesn't have to be weird. You know, Sibby Grace, our youngest daughter, she's 4 years old. She's never met a stranger. I'll tell you a very quick, funny story. I was sitting outside of a coffee shop in Raleigh, and I had Sailor and Sibby with me. Steph was off with Sterling doing something, and Sailor and Sibby were out kind of playing in this field, and I was talking to this very sharp young couple sitting behind me. We were just having a pretty good conversation, and Sibby comes running over to the table, and right in the middle of our conversation, she looks at me and she says, "Dad, when are you gonna get married?" And I'm like, "Sibby, what are you talking about? I am married." And I'm looking at the couple, I'm married. I'm married to her mom, as a matter of fact. And she goes, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Sibby, I'm married. I'm very much married." And she's like, "Daddy, you're not married. You and mommy are just dating." And I'm just like, this couldn't be any more weird and awkward. And many of us, how many of y'all have ever seen a little kid walk up and, like the other day we were at that same coffee shop. People in Raleigh know if they ever want to find Drew, just go to this particular spot and there's a 98% chance that you'll see him there at least in the next 30 minutes. And so we're hanging out and Sibby's staring at this little boy. And I'm like, she is far too young to be noticing boys. And so immediately I'm like, that kid's got funny teeth. I'm just kidding. I'm just trying to talk her out of it. I'm just messing. But I said, look at that kid over there. And so you keep looking at him. What's up? And she goes, I went to camp with him. And I said, go say hi. And so she immediately walked over like a new person who thinks that their goal is to sell and recruit. She walked over. She was bold getting over there. And then when she got to the table where his mom and his sisters and him were sitting, she just went. And we're done. I mean, about that long. And it's awkward. And when you're new, you don't have to do that. If that's what you think that this is, hang on, get more educated so that we can operate with confidence and not be weird and scare the people. But this is a success journey, and your success in this opportunity will ultimately rest on two things. Your willingness to lead. Your willingness to lead. And your commitment to finish. So let's talk about these things. This really is all about leadership. We talk about being mentored and coached, but if you're gonna have a large organization, this isn't anything to be intimidated about. None of us were equipped to do this when we first got started, but you have to embrace the idea that this is all about leadership, that one day, if you wanna have a big business, you're gonna have to embrace the idea that you need to be qualified to be in a mentor and coaching position. And the only way that I found to get myself into that position was to be someone who was mentorable, if that's a word, and coachable. And not just listen to what the perspective advice they're giving me is, but to pay attention to it and take note of it so that one day when people came to me with these questions, I had the answers. Not because I had the answers, but because in years past, people gave me those answers. Mentally and emotionally weak people will not succeed in this endeavor. Mentally and emotionally people will not succeed, but if you don't lead, you won't succeed. If you don't lead, you won't succeed. And I think the weird paradox in our business is that you're not physically having to do something all the time, but mentally and emotionally you're committed 24/7, it seems. I have to like consciously shut this off. Yes, we all have a work ethic, but there's not a person in this room that if I said, hey, I've set up meetings for you for the next 365 days, one a day, how many of y'all would go do the one meeting a day if they were already booked and set? So work ethic typically isn't the problem. The problem for most people is their emotional and mental weakness, not being willing to push through adversities and such. So becoming a leader is a tough, but a remarkably rewarding experience. So a word of advice as you're starting your business, just survive your first year. Danny said this, he said, Drew, go your first year on total faith. Just total faith. In other words, just survive. Then the second year, you're gonna start to see a trickle of things happen. And then the third year, if you're still standing, you're gonna see the explosion. It's gonna take us a year to 2 years to develop the skill set, the habits, to lay the foundation that we need to be able not just to grow, but to also be able to handle the growth. Your business will never outgrow your self-image. It may outgrow your character level, but ultimately it will always come back or ascend to where your character level is. And it takes time for us to firm those things up. So I want to kind of flip some perspective. What did you fail at today? And I don't know about y'all, but for me, that was a major paradigm shift coming in this environment because we're conditioned to always be looking for the pat on the back for what we did right. But what that question does is it actually allows us to invite failing in. Because what we have to change is the fact that failure and failing are two completely different things. To be honest with you, the only way that someone can be a failure is if they personally decide to be a failure. Failing, we all know, success is built upon that. So listen, you're not making mistakes, you're creating stories. That's really what it is. We all listen to audios and we laugh and we cut up and we're like, man, that audio was so hilarious, man. Could you believe all the silly, goofy things that they did? And we just think it's a riot to laugh at the other things and the silly things that people have done. But then when it comes to us, we don't want to make mistakes. Listen, mistakes are stories. It's your audio content. We need to be able to laugh at you too. It's what helps us keep our sanity. Leaders see failure as a wrong turn on the way to success. The masses see failure as a destination. So I want to go down this road of talking to you about if you're going to be a leader, ... if you're gonna be a leader, ... Just give you a few of these things. There's probably a longer list we can go through, but one of the first things that Danny taught me was turn your excuses into your reasons. Turn your excuses into your reasons. I don't have time. Well, okay, Drew, but if you don't have time now and you don't change anything, you'll continue to not have time. In fact, you'll probably have less and less time as you go through different seasons in life. I don't have money. That shouldn't be an excuse. It should be a reason. And to be honest with you, my personal opinion, I don't think people have money problems in America. I think they have a priorities problem, which we'll talk about in a second. But whatever your excuse is, I don't want to miss my kids' sporting events. Listen, I hear you, right? But the reality is, if we don't do something to change the scenario, we're always going to be giving our family our leftovers anyway. I wanted to be able to give them the best parts of me. So if you're going to lead, you have to turn your excuses into your reasons. The second thing is we have to choose to be optimistic. That is a choice. Some people, this comes more natural to others. There are some people who are literally born, they're just naturally jolly people. But I had to learn, and I still continuously have to choose to have what we call a PMA. There's another acronym for you. Positive mental attitude. Had to choose that. A leader will succeed or fail based on whether they have an attitude of optimism or defeat. Learn to have an attitude of gratitude. Something that I practice every day of my life is not to look at my cell phone the first 15 to 20 minutes that I wake up in the morning. And to spend just a handful of minutes, not a lot, but just a few minutes of just thinking about things I'm grateful for that day. And when I first started doing this, it was really insane how the first couple of days, you thought of some things, but after about 4 or 5 days, it's almost like it becomes quite difficult to think of stuff. But you have to push through that. And I mean, my goodness, look at all the things that are going right in our life. So just start your day, calibrate yourself to being positive, to being optimistic, just to expecting good things are gonna happen. And listen, I know some cynical people are like, well, Drew, I mean, you have to face reality. Reality is nothing more than your perception. That's all it really is. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. I know it's really, really dark in here right now, but look around, and I want you to, just for a quick second, I want you to find everything you can see that's the color white. Just look for it. Anything that you see that's the color white, find it right there near you. All right? Now I want you to tell your neighbor, what did you see that was the color blue? Tough, isn't it? Because you set your focus on something. Now let's do this. Now look for something around you that's the color purple. Go ahead, look for it. Where's purple? And how many of y'all, honestly, saw something blue and called it purple? Because when you're looking for something and you're focused on something and you've chosen what you're going to look for, even things that aren't quite it, you begin to look or see opportunities in it. And where other people, they go, that's not purple, that's blue. You go, no, that's actually pretty close to purple. Because you just have this aura of being optimistic. And people want to be around people who are positive, who are energetic, who are hopeful, who aren't running around talking about why the sky is falling or that the sky is falling, but they're running around talking about the fact that, man, we're going to do something great with our life. You know, how many times did you hear Danny talk about that really what attracted him to Larry was just the vision and the dream? And that's all you really need. To be a leader, you just have to believe that there's a chance. Another thing you have to do is you have to overcome quote unquote buyer's remorse. We'll call it entrepreneur's remorse. This may happen your first day in business, maybe your first week, first month. Maybe it takes a little longer. Maybe it's 6 months, a year, 3 years into this journey. But on this success journey, you're going to have a moment of entrepreneur's remorse where you begin to question whether you made the right decision. You begin to question whether this was worth it. Will it work? I mean, you're just going to get flooded with thoughts of doubt. And this is the time where you're going to have to decide, do you have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset? A fixed mindset says, this is hard, it must not be for me. People with a growth mindset say, this is a challenge. I love a good challenge. This is an opportunity for me to grow, to learn, to become stronger, to mature. This is what success feels like. In fact, when Steph and I compliment our children, Sailor, our oldest daughter, she's very academically inclined and gifted. Not that the other two are just, we're still, the verdict's still out. You know what I mean? They're too young. But the oldest, she just proved herself. But we had to be very cautious not to say, hey, Sailor, great job on that test. You're so smart. Because that would imply that it's talent and ability that's allowing her to succeed. Instead, we compliment her on her effort and her discipline. Because then we're demonstrating the fact that what's causing the success is certain habits, not some innate ability. And it's huge. It's a growth mindset. So you're gonna have to push through that buyer's remorse. You're gonna have to push through plateaus. I think we want success to look like this just ascending line, right? Just this ascending arrow from bottom to ceiling. It doesn't look like that. But then you also see drawings being posted all over social media that show like just a bunch of squiggly circles, and this is what success looks like, and that's not true either. What success actually looks like is a little bit of growth, and then a plateau, and then a dip, and then a little bit of growth, and then a plateau, and a little bit of dip. And here's what happens to people. When we start something new, I'm gonna warn you, oftentimes, many of you, when you're new in business, you're going to experience rapid success. Rapid success. It's like a guy says, man, I wanna learn to play tennis, and he's at a level 0. Maybe you got a little athleticism, so you're a 1. But you get a racket and you go out there and you hit a few tennis balls, you get some instruction, you watch a video on YouTube, whatever, and the danger is you actually go from a 1 to like a 5 very, very quick. So then what we do is we're like, man, I'm a natural. This is coming easy to me, right? That's what a fixed mindset will tell you, because here's what happens. You're gonna hit a plateau. So now you've invested money in all the outfits, in my case, a sweatband and wristband, all these different things, and you hit a wall, and what most people do is go, man, I must not be good at this now. I was wrong. Let me go try something else. So then they go and they start to learn racquetball. That's in the tennis family, but a shorter court. Maybe that's what I'm gonna be good at. And they buy all the equipment for that. And the same thing, they go from a level 2 to a level 6 immediately. Oh, this is awesome. But then they hit a plateau and they don't push through it. And they go, oh, I must not be destined to do this. And so then they go try to play golf. And they start golf at a 1. And 8 years later, they're still at a 1. It's the hardest sport on the planet. You're going to go through a plateau in this business. It may happen right out the gate. It may happen later. All of us have to push through those plateaus. Another thing about leading, leaders can't be afraid of criticism. You can't. Leaders learn to use criticism as motivation. At some point, all of us have to stop being manipulated and controlled by the majority, by the crowd. Leaders are the kind of people that when they walk into a room, it shifts or changes the atmosphere. It's not someone who just is trying to blend in when they see things aren't being done right. And to be honest, that's why most people never get past that first year, that second year, because they're just too concerned with what people think. Well, I care what people think too. I just happen to choose which of those people's opinions that matter. Be selective. Don't base your decisions on the advice of people who don't have to deal with the results. Don't base your decisions on the advice of people that don't have to deal with the outcome or results of the advice that they gave you. Understand that when you start a business, you're gonna get described as radical, which is a word that average people use to describe commitment. If you're gonna be a leader, you have to be emotionally mature enough to make decisions based on principles and values, not your feelings. It's so crazy when you think about stuff. An hour at the gym, people say, I wish I had time. An hour watching TV, they go, you know what, that was so good, let's watch one more episode. And then what's funny is the person that says, well, I don't even watch TV, says the person who spends 6 hours a day on social media. It's crazy. See, our actions indicate how we see ourselves. Our actions, our choices indicate how we see ourselves. If you believe you're gonna win, you don't have a problem delaying gratification. Delaying gratification, prioritizing, making good decisions is only difficult to people who are still unsure if they have what it takes on the inside of them to win. Another one I would tell you is wisely choose who you let influence you. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I'll tell you, when you get around this team, the you stink effect kicks in. Like, you know what I mean? You ever get around somebody and immediately by being around them, maybe you're not great with your money. Like that's been a struggle your entire time. And then you get around someone who everything they touch turns to gold. Like you're just trying to figure out how to catch up and get back to zero, and they spit off 10 ideas a minute on different things that they can do to be successful and create more income. And that's one of the hardest parts about stepping into this environment, is because if we're not careful, we can get intimidated by the success people have, but that's exactly where you need to be. The you stink factor helps all of us if we look at it the right way. Because what they're doing is they're showcasing, not by things they're saying, but just the way they're living their life, they're demonstrating to us the things that we need to work on and embrace. So it's good to be around people like that. Mentorship isn't always easy. Their life exposes us. I heard a guy say, you'll be exposed by this business, and then eventually you'll or exposed to this business, and then eventually you'll be exposed by this business. Mentorship is only fruitful to people in motion. So we have to become self-aware. We have to fall in love with personal growth. Know everything happens in the unseen before it happens in the seen. You know what's crazy to me is you guys have sat in these chairs for the last day and a half already, and I'm willing to bet that not a single one of you, when you went to sit in that chair right before, stopped yourself in this position before your cheeks hit the cushion and thought, you know what? How do I know this guy made this chair to hold me? How can I trust that? You've never met the person. I mean, who knows? They could be a total shyster that made your chair. But you sat in it with so much confidence. And what's crazy is how we have more faith and confidence in a chair that was manufactured by someone that we don't even know than sometimes we do the confidence in ourselves to manufacture things. And that chair was an idea in someone's mind before it showed up in the physical. It has to happen in the unseen before it happens in the seen. We've got to believe it here. So I want to wrap up, and I want to tell you this. Ultimately, I think that your success in this opportunity or anything you do in life is going to revolve around your level of personal integrity. I think that many people lack integrity. I lacked integrity when I got started. I didn't know it, but here's how you know. When I see someone stuck at 100 PV for a really long time, I don't see someone stuck at 100 PV. I see someone with 100 broken promises. I'm not trying to beat anybody up, but think about this. When's the last time you made a commitment to do something and you saw it all the way through? It's the power of a promise. I mean, if you had a friend and he called you up and said, hey, can you help me move? And you said, yeah, man, I'll be there in about 30 minutes to help you move, because he said the movers bailed on him. He just is in a tough situation. You said, I'll be right there. 30 minutes passes, an hour passes, 5 hours pass. You don't show up. You don't call. You don't text, nothing. He calls you multiple times. You don't respond. 2 weeks later, you hit him up like no big deal. Nothing ever happened. And he goes, dude, where you been? Scared about you, concerned about you. You were supposed to help me move. You never showed. What in the world? And you go, oh, man, sorry about that. I got caught up watching a college basketball game on TV that day, and, I just didn't really feel like helping you move. Well, maybe you can find it in your heart to forgive and move on. But then the next time you go call him up, hey, man, my wife and I, we have a little bit of emergency. We got to take one of our kids over here and stuff. Can you come up and watch the other two kids? And just, we're in a tough spot. Can you really help us out? Man, I'll be right there. I'll be right there. And then show again. And he comes back and doesn't hear from you, and then finally you call him back 3 weeks later. Man, dude, what in the world? Where you been? I was counting on you. Oh, sorry, man. I forgot. How many times could people break their promises to us like that and us continuously consider them to be a great friend? And yet that's what we have a tendency to do to ourselves all the time. I'm going to go grow. I'm going to start taking people through this process. We make these promises without understanding the magnitude of what happens if we break them. Because when we break our personal promises, when we don't value our personal integrity, what ends up happening, guys, is the next time you go make a promise, we say to ourselves subconsciously, it's feeding us a failure ledger. Who do you think you are? How many times have you said you'll break out of this, that, and the other, and you haven't? How many times have you made promises that you didn't keep? And what ends up happening to us is instead of our subconscious being our greatest friend, it becomes our greatest enemy. So pick a promise coming out of this weekend. Pick a promise as you're starting your business that you absolutely will not break. And I would recommend that promise be that you finish what you start. And the last thing is, leaders value their time. Your 78-year-old average lifespan in America, 28 years of those 78 years is spent sleeping. 7 of those 28 years is actually spent lying in bed worrying, not even sleeping. 7 years people spend worrying. 12 years of the average person's lifetime they spend at work, 12 physical years at work, 4 years they spend driving to work, 11 years they spend watching TV, social media, or the internet, 11 years people spend eating, and those are the best 11 years of our life. We spend 4 years getting dressed and doing other mundane tasks. So when you break this down, it means that the average person actually only has around 8 years to truly be free and live their life. It's better to fail at something with great meaning than to succeed at something that means nothing. So as you start this process, start this journey, congratulations, welcome to the team. And I don't want this to sound like it's being overly heavy, but listen, if it seems harder than you thought, if it seems like too much work, that it'll take too long, if you're questioning whether it's worth it, if you're thinking you should quit, welcome to the success journey. You're doing it exactly right. These things aren't happening to you, they're happening for you. Happening to develop your character, your resolve, your leadership capacity. And these things happen to all of us. The thoughts of doubt attack all our minds. Leaders just keep going. This does not take talent, it takes guts. And I love that, because there's not a person that steps foot on this stage that doesn't have guts. It's not a physical battle. It's, can you be mentally tough enough, emotionally strong enough to keep fighting through adversity? And when you get there, you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of champions and winners, and no wimps will be allowed. Do you have what it takes to finish the success journey? With this team, I believe you do. God bless.
For existing IBOs only, not for use with prospects.